What up? What up? What up? It is another episode of the Shark Cove. Look, it would be the fish pond edition number 2, but like, are sharks real? Are birds real? Like, there are people that don't think birds are real. Are we living in a simulation? Are we a program in Will's computer? Is that what's happening? Look, man, so much to talk about. We've got 5 games, and we've just got like this whole meaning of life to talk about. If that wasn't enough, I have a guest. I have a guest that likes to talk. So I'm glad he's on here and he can help shed some light on what's real and what isn't. It's Mr. Gelati.
How's it going, guys? By the way, I just want to open with this. You're killing me, Vikla. You're killing me. That's it. That's it. That's it. I had to get that off my chest.
Yeah, look, I had I don't know, man. I have this. I hate betting on the LCK and the LPL. I do so much better on the ERLs, like just so much better. But man, if LNG and KT could have won yesterday, it would have been a really good day for me. Or I don't know, if we could have hit the over in the first game with LNG winning, that would have been cool. I mean, it was 24.5. And I know you and I have talked about kind of some of these overs for today, and you have a bit of more trepidation than I do. I'm full steam ahead, but that's probably why I don't like it. We have some differing philosophies. You like throwing 2 or 3 units to win one on some of these favorites, and sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Every time I read your article and I see you do that, I'm emboldened. And then sometimes I have to stop myself and say that is not within my system. And sometimes I'm happy about it. Sometimes I'm not,
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of hold to the adage that edge is edge. So like,
Sure.
I come from a bit of a different background when it comes to like risk stuff. So like, to me, if you have an advantage on a market price, you have an advantage on a market price. And staking is, everyone does staking differently. Some people do flat staking. Some people do quarter Kelly or whatever they want to do. But yeah, like to me, if you have an edge just because it's a big favorite or you're laying 5 to win 1, it doesn't matter to me if there's an advantage there.
So Gelati, are you real? Are the books
I don't know.
in your library, are those real?
Those are not real, but they look
man.
real. The fan, however, is real. You see that fan there? No, I'm just kidding. That's not real either. It looks real though, doesn't it?
Not hat. Yeah. Hey, look, Disha, I will tell you. Look, when it comes to FlyQuest hats, like they do such a great job on jerseys, but their hats are like, I don't know, made out of like recycled paper or something. Absolute worst things I've like. They're terrible. I have one.
Dude, the FlyQuest jerseys are fly, dude. I'm a big fan of all their like they've had a bunch of different versions of their jersey too. I like all of them.
Yeah, I have like one of the like spring, like the purple pink jersey things. It's a weird.
You had like the Hawaiian one where they had like the Hawaiian thing going on where it's like flowers and shit.
Yeah, the World's jersey. I had that yesterday, and then I had like the spring one. I don't know. It's always a good gift. I usually get a couple in December. It's my birthday. It's Christmas. It's just easy for me to say, hey, get me something like this, and just take it from there. I think I got to get some CLG ones though, because their current one looks all right, and they're doing pretty well. We'll not talk about that. But look, so when it comes down to this, reality is what we perceive it to be. I don't know if you've ever heard this, but like, do you ever think that we will have the technology to create a simulation more than what we have right now? So then, in turn, if you believe that, then you have to believe that there's at least a probability that we are, in fact, in that simulation. If we could, in fact, get that somewhere down the road, that we could be a retroactive simulation, and the probability that we are is actually even greater because there's only one real reality where everything came from, and the rest are just simulations, which means that we have like a 99.999 like repeating percent chance that we are, in fact, in that simulation.
It's like the ultimate Black Swan event, right? Like it's like the most outlandish thing, but like, yeah, it's who the hell said it? It's like, have you ever questioned the reality or oh my god, I can't remember what it was from now. It's like, have you ever questioned the makeup of your reality? I can't remember what this is from now, but yeah, you could go into the Matrix a little this shit too, like talking about fate and destiny and do you believe in all that stuff, and yeah, you could go real deep.
Well, and
We're
one
a
of the
philosophy
things,
podcast now.
yeah, well, one of the things that you need to, be in a simulation is a way to like record the data that is in the simulation, right?
Yeah.
But that's what consciousness could be, right? Like that could be
It
the
could be.
recording and experiencing.
Like we could be like the ultimate form of machine learning, like, right? If you think about it, like we kind of are, like we are just machines in a weird way. Just maybe we weren't made. I don't know. That'd be wild to think about, but
it's a lot. Like I said in the intro, we could just be a simulation on, Will's computer being put into Saber Sim.
Simulations.
Yeah, I mean, like we could be a plus EV simulation. We might not be. I don't know. Will's just running simulations, but he could be in a simulation. He might not even be real. I've never met him. I don't know that he's real. I don't know that any of you are real. Will could be
the architect.
He could be.
Maybe he is.
He could be. I mean, look, I know Nathan's met him, but I've never met Nathan. So, could all be.
Yeah, but did Nathan really meet him is the question, right?
Or is that what he wants?
Yeah, or was that just his perception, a projection from his head on what he thinks Will is?
Yeah, I mean,
everything's perception, man.
Man. It's a good point. It's a good point. But let's get into it.
We need Spell to screenshot this whole thing so
that we just on what reality is. All right, well, let's hop into it. What's the first game? The first game that we have is
2:45 a.m. Eastern. We have.
And these, I like these, but I hate these at the same time in terms of the time slot. Just on the basis that it's like, I want to watch it. It's not that far, but like it just really does kind of not work with your schedule.
It kills your day tomorrow if you're going to stay up and do it. For these, what I usually end up doing for these Saturday slates is I'll miss the first one most of the time, and I'll just rewatch it after all the games are done in the morning, like between when they're done and LEC starts. Or I just catch it the end of the day or the next day or something, because like they're not playing for a couple days. So I don't usually need the film or anything. But yeah, because otherwise, like I'm used to waking up early, like 3:30, 4 o'clock. Like that doesn't bother me. But like getting up at 2:30 or 2:45, forget it, man. Like I'm not.
Yeah, like if this was on a Sunday, but the other part of it is like you have to sacrifice on most weekends. This one not being it. You have to sacrifice a set of games. Like you just have to. Like you can't watch the LPL, LCK into the LEC, into the LCS.
Usually and then pass out the first game of the LEC, right? Or the first break in the LEC. Usually pass out. That's
and I think one time last year, leading into like the WE OMG series, I think I watched the LJL too. So it was like the LCS ended. It was a Friday night. It ended at like 10, 11 o'clock. The LJL came on. I was watching that. And then
28 hours then later, it was into, wow, I haven't stopped watching League all day.
Like you pass out for like a game. You're like, all right, well, this one looks all right. You wake up, there's a team fight. You're like, oh, what's going on? Oh my God, I missed a whole game. Like what happened here? And you're like looking for spell screenshots, but he's asleep. So you don't have those. We didn't have Lee's backup as a backup back then. So, you had to find a couple different things. And of course it's the LPL. So there's no active, like really good, reliable APIs. And I always just doubt that Google's correct. So nevertheless, we have an Anyone's Legend team -120 versus an Ultra Prime team -110. Despite the odds on this match, Ultra Prime is priced way up on DraftKings. Anyone's Legend is way down. This is what a lot of people are calling a chalk dog. Now, I may have gone out and said chalk dogs aren't real. And I think what I meant was, and I guess it could have been a little bit clearer, but chalk dogs aren't real in the sense that like they're a bad play. Like, in fact, they're a good play, and that's why you should probably play them. But yeah, I mean, like there's going to be massive leverage situations and times when they're like 50, 60% owned. Like the chalk dog is the actual chalk. I can think of a couple times when it was like Victory 5 versus maybe it was RNG. I don't remember. It was last split, but like you couldn't fit anybody with anybody that you'd want to play except for Victory 5 fit with everybody. And they became like the most popular play. Do you think that that's a situation that we run into today with Anyone's Legend? I mean, the line is right here. You pick a side. These are not typically things that I like to bet, -110, -120, unless I have a really strong feel. And I don't know if I have a strong feel for one of these two teams.
Yeah, so first of all, for like DFS purposes, these situations always end up. It's just it makes things awkward, but you have to kind of try to find a balance between like, okay, you don't want to be overexposed on something you think is going to be overexposed. But then, honestly, keeping with the theme of philosophy and all this shit that we're keeping with in this podcast right now, if like, just how far does this go? Like, how far down the rabbit hole do we go with this? Right? Is Anyone's Legend just going to be? Everyone's going to look at it, see like, okay, -120, small favorite. They're priced like a big underdog or moderate underdog, and they fit with all the big favorites. It makes sense. That's level 0, right? Like that's level 0. That's the first thing everyone's going to look at. Sometimes it's Occam's razor and the simplest solution, right? That's like level 0. Level 1 would be, okay, they're going to be super owned. Maybe I want to fade some of that ownership. Maybe not all of it, but some of it, right? Or maybe you do want to just completely fade all of it, right? Or be on the other side of it. Like conversely, because Ultra Prime is more expensive, maybe they're going to be lower owned, right? And this is ultimately still like by the market odds of 50-50, right? Or close to it. Mm-hmm. Level 2 would be like, okay, is everybody going to next level the next level, right? Like, and then we get into this whole circumstance where it's like the fighting game thing where, okay, he's going to kick low. He's going to kick low again. I'm going to juke him. He thinks I'm going to go high now. I'm going to kick low again. Like you end up doing like all these mind games and then you end up wrapping yourself in circular logic and you're like, all right, what am I even doing with this game? Right.
Yeah. And I think that, I don't know, while the field is a lot sharper than it was and we're playing, much smaller contests than in the past. I don't think people are trying to like have that level of gamesmanship. However, what you run into and kind of what you alluded to is if Anyone's Legend fits with everybody else and people are just putting them but they're putting them with all the favorites, it's getting spread out. Is any one favorite going to command high enough, especially on a slate like this we'll get into? There's a lot of these 50-50s. Are any of those favorites going to command enough ownership that Anyone's Legend is not the highest owned? I mean, look, when we talk about chalk dogs in a general sense, not on this slate, but like, look, if they're at like 20-30%, but you have like two other favorites that are like 50 or 60% or 40%, trying to get leverage on the third or fourth highest owned team on a slate is just, you're not getting the same level of leverage that you're attempting to do when you're fading these 50 or 60. Yeah, you are getting some leverage, but at that point, you're probably on the fourth or fifth best play. And you're getting really cute, and it depends on your contest too. Like when we're talking about this 2 max, 3 max, the Triumphant Warrior, I don't think that you play like that. I mean, Moose said it yesterday. You play like your cash lineup in a hedge. I think in a 2-entry max, that's still not the right way to do it. Contests aren't the greatest right now, but let's take a look at these two teams' history, their recent history, that is, and see if we feel like by looking at this, and I know you have some numbers that indicate one way or the other, are these two teams properly priced here? So AL is riding high, look, coming off of a win against Weibo. They had a win against IG. We thought they were gone. We thought they were fraudulent after they lost to LGD, but they came back and they beat Weibo when we were at the lowest for them. Whereas we've got Up, who've lost quite a few games in a row in pretty bloody fashion at that. And I don't know if we can really blame them for that. I mean, they've had a relatively tough schedule. Save, OMG team, the first game, who was just not in sync. This RA team that is, just not very good. I don't think, at least. They caught BLG when BLG had their shit together, but then they've had to play JDG, WBG, and RNG. That's not the easiest trio of games, and for them to go 1-6 in that, it's not entirely unexpected, and I don't
that's
necessarily
not
think
like
it's
a
a problem.
bad thing. Like losing to losing to really good teams is never that big of an indictment, unless it's like a trend that you can recognize, like we did with OMG last year, where they like literally could not beat any team that was in the top 8.
Right.
But yeah, so this one's interesting. Typically, when you have anything close to a coin flip, but it's two teams that are. I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and say, like, I don't think either of these teams are particularly good. I think maybe one of them will sneak into playoffs because they've had such a good start and they're going to have tiebreakers. I don't think these teams are actually playoff caliber teams, but I'm pretty sure one of them is going to make playoffs. And but anytime you have like these middle or bottom of the table 50-50 matchups between like mediocre teams or worse, you can look at all the stuff you want and can look at strength of schedule and you can look at how they've performed against the other teams around their rating and all this different stuff. But the way I do things is I look at performance game to game. And if you look at like game to game performance, like anyone's Legend's a better team. Like I don't think the problem is like when you make a team, if you're making a market on this, like I'm originating numbers for all this stuff. I made AL pretty big favorites in this case. What was it? I'm not gonna go through all the numbers, but like I made them sizable favorites, like significantly more in the price. And like I even wrote it in my article today. Like I hate situations like this because like I don't like laying money. Like I don't like laying money on bad teams like this unless I'm getting a good number. But again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. Like you have to assess risk on advantage that you have, and it might feel weird, laying $1.20 or whatever with anyone's Legend, but if you make it a significantly bigger number than that, then it's whatever. And the other thing with bad teams and mediocre teams is sometimes they just don't deliver consistently, so you have to kind of bake in a little bit more uncertainty than with good teams, right? Especially like if they're good fundamental teams. I don't know. What do you have a lean on this? Like,
so I do, but before we get into that, I want to ask you because we've talked about this, and I've actually taken what you said and taught it to somebody else. We look at these spread numbers. Plus 1.5 is minus 360.
Yeah.
The other one is minus 1.5 at plus 255. I mean, I think that's an okay number. But what do you feel about this over 2.5 at even? I'm not saying I'm leaning at it. I'm just saying like this has been. This is one of those situations where both teams aren't good. We saw it last night with WE and OMG, where OMG just did give up such a huge lead that despite WE's inability to team fight, they were able to take that lead and win a game.
Yeah.
You're getting even money on it versus, laying a bunch here. Is this one of those weird exceptions to that, or do you still think that this is a minus EV bet?
I think it's a minus EV bet, but in this specific instance, it's not like huge. And if you want to, I don't know. I in general, there's very, 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 very few situations where a map total bet is correct. And most of the time, like probably 90+% of those small percentage of situations, it's not in best of threes, it's in best of fives.
Gotcha.
Just because like the way the books price everything, it ends up just working out. Like if you just do the odds, like the implied odds on map prices and everything, if you do all that stuff quantitatively, it's almost never going to be a good bet. But I do think qualitatively there is something to what you're saying in this specific instance. Like, I think what the other weird thing that you have to consider right now, and I think why you might have an advantage on this and something to think about, is Blue Side is completely dominating in the LPL right now. It's like almost a 65% win rate over the course of the whole summer. That's insane. Like, I think in years past we've gone at individual seasons and people might look at a specific league or across the globe or west or east or whatever and look at, oh, well, Blue Side or Red Side's got a little bit higher of a win rate right now. Mm-hmm. It's, historically it's like 51-49 or 50.5. Like it's within 1% or 2%, right? Like it's more or less a coin.
Or they'll run streaks, but it's going to normalize.
Yeah, they'll run streaks and it's different. This is weird for two reasons. And I'm glad I ended up coming to this because I didn't really think about it until you brought the map total discussion up here. But
well, it's part of why I brought it up.
it's interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting thought. So like, what's interesting here is you have. I mean, if you give 65%, even if you shave that down a little bit to assume some kind of regression to normal, right? Even if you shave that down a little bit, all of a sudden these look like slam dunks, right? But most of the time, even still, you're probably just better off taking the underdog. Like that's the thing, right? Like it's. I mean, underdog map spreads have been absolutely murdering it in the LPL. There's been like very few sweeps. And
yeah, but you're getting minus 360 on this one. That's the whole thing. Yeah. And so you're relying on anyone's legend who granted, like I think they're blue side the first game, so presumably they'll get it twice. So they should be able. Well, I mean, if they win the first one, if they're getting it twice, then you've already won the bet. But man, like, there's just never a moment in my life thus far, or what I can see, or in any reality, where anyone's legend is going to be minus 360 on any type of wager that I make.
Yeah,
and I'm throwing 3.5 units to get one. So I almost feel like, yeah, you are relying on Ultra Prime to win one. I mean, I think you could even double it down with Ultra Prime as minus 1.5. I don't know. Like, I think that there's some concoction of bets that you can make in all of the individual blue sides.
But you can bet an exact 2-1, but those are usually minus EV wagers, and you don't want to have any kind of situation involving that. Like you're ending up just paying money back to the books when you're doing that kind of thing. So,
but I mean, you could do something like this too. Like, okay, and I have no idea on the math on this, but you bet anyone's legend the first one, you bet Ultra Prime the third one, and if you're wrong, like you have the over 2.5. Maybe you don't bet this. You have Ultra Prime here. If they just sweep, it covers some of those bets, and then this third map just negates out there. There's
arbitrage opportunities to create for sure. Like if you want to play that game, it's pretty straightforward. Like I don't need to explain to you how this works. You can just kind of like look at it. And
I'm guessing spell based on the way that they're situated. I believe that anyone's legend is starting blue.
Well, they have choice.
Okay, so they're going to start.
Yeah. Okay. Unless they change that again, but they have choice. They have first choice, and clearly blue is very strong right now. So, yeah, I almost think that anytime I almost would rather take. I haven't done like a deep dive on this specifically because you might actually be onto something with this. Like that might just be a better way to play it if you are absolutely certain it's going to 3 games not absolutely certain, but if you're, if it's 80+% to go to 3 games, you're just taking that 5% edge or whatever percent edge every single match just because blue's so dominant right now. I mean, that's also, so we've also only had 2 days now on 12-2. It seems like blue is still really, really good because of the bot lane prio situation. Like you can safe pick a good blind or a good jungle with your first pick on blue. They have to show you something, and then you can take, whichever lane you want to counter and have prio in. And a lot of times it's bottom lane because the red side you typically want to take bottom or one part of the bottom lane in the first 3 picks. So you're going to get to see something, and you kind of have there's just an edge to blue side bottom lane right now, unless you're going to do something really wacky.
Well, and to that extent too, I mean, you got a 2-0, 2-1. If you think anyone's legend is going to win, you can instead of bet. I mean,
honestly, we're getting to a point where like these again, like exactas are not great either usually for the same reason map total bets are. But right now, if you think anyone's legend wins this match, it's almost better to take the 2-1.
Right. I mean, you can even take the 2-0 just to cover yourself, and I mean, you guarantee yourself some profit if anyone's legend wins. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the same thing as the minus 120.
Was it 235?
Yeah. So that's
265.
Yeah,
it's the order there. I think the money line's actually better by a little bit.
Yeah,
but it's close. Yeah, like that idea is, or I mean, you could also alter your staking on that too. Like you could do like 3 quarters on the 2-1, 1 quarter on the 2-0, that kind of thing. Sure. Yeah, I've never seen anything like this. Like I've never seen either side dominate this hard. Like the closest thing we had was like the LPL the LPL historically has been a red side dominated league, which is what makes this even weirder. It's like double weird because if anyone was going to do this, it wouldn't have been the LPL, and all of a sudden the LPL shifts 20% the other direction. Like, what's going on here? It's very, very weird.
Well, the other bet that I like here, and I don't think that you're as in love with it as I am, and I'm not in love with it. Let's put it that way. We've got the 25.5, and I get why this is a scary situation. When we look at these two teams, anyone's legend, when they lose, they tend to be, part of like very big high kill total games. You can look at the totals that I have here. They're getting over that 25.5. Even I think you can, if you're really scared about, I think it's up at like these 24s and these 25s when they lose and they just get run over. I think like the 24, maybe you can buy down if you're really scared there. But I think conversely, I think you can bet like what I did with the LNG series last night is I bet like a full unit on like the minus 120 or minus 115 or whatever it was. And then I put like a half unit on like 28, 29, whatever the case was, a couple kills ahead of it. I just did that on map 1 and 2, and I was able to come out positive from that when only one of the maps hit, but the secondary bet hit, and it was like a plus 185 or something along those lines. So I think that this series is one that if the game does go over, you have a high tendency of getting into some of those higher numbers if you want to look at betting some alternate kill totals.
You would say it has a long tail to the upside. Is like
there's some heavy variance up top, and there's a lot less like I don't. This isn't one that's, and I'm saying this now, but it could totally be that. This isn't one where it's ending under 20 in the kills.
Probably not.
We're not taking the under the under 22, the under 21, or the under 18 for that matter.
If let's be investment bankers here and just like lay the account on over 18.5.
yeah, you could.
I mean, there's so few situations where that happens, but man, yeah, this one's weird. So, I'm trying to be more selective in summer. This was like one of the tenets I put out for myself before, like in my recap in this of the spring split. So to me, I found a stronger edge on the side. It's not that I dislike the total. I actually think the total over is a fine play. I think it's pretty good here. I just had a bigger edge on the money line price, which is why I took that. So I don't. This over is fine to me. I think you're good.
Fair enough. Like I got killed on overs and unders back in spring, but that has been what it is for me in summer. However, it's just in this weird gray area because it was just slam unders for a long time. But now, it's kind of normalized. Teams have learned to be more aggressive. The only thing and the only thing that has been troublesome is when some of these teams, I think I talked about it yesterday, get up 5, 6, 7 kills, and then all of a sudden they're unkillable. And then they end up winning like 15-2, 15-1. Like, just go watch an Immortals.
Or like I was saying to you before we got on tonight, like sometimes you just have these like lanes where the team drafts the zero, the zero priority in 2 or 3 lanes composition. They just get run over in bot lane and the game's over. So there's been a number of those too. But anything that's
LPL would be somebody that does that
has gone over. That's the thing. So like I think your like your risk is to the upside, which is good if you're taking overs. Like that's where you want to be. And you're starting to see the overs get juiced. You're starting to see time totals get juiced under, so the risk is to the downside on those too. So yeah, one thing that's weird about Ultra Prime is that they are extraordinarily consistent at like landing within their ranges, and they have like a hard line between like 25 and 30. It's like this goofy. Yeah, I don't know. They're
yeah, I mean, it's
I don't know. It's goofy
25, 24, 25,
doesn't necessarily
25,
even
30,
mean anything.
30.
It's just funny looking.
Yeah, and then the other thing is when you look at this data, you almost have to throw out the first 2 matches. Like this data right here, I don't think is as relevant as these 4 matches. Yeah. And certainly some teams have played more, but like those first 2 games on this patch, or in best of ones, even like their first 6 games, sometimes just don't have any. Or if you're looking at the ERLs where they played an entire week on 12-9 before shifting over, It's like
Everyone's
you just have to
super
throw.
timid. Everyone's still getting
Yeah.
the feel of things. And when teams are new, they don't do aggressive stuff. They just do like, okay, this is the stock standard. Let's start at our baseline and do this. And that's why unders are good and overs get. That's why time total overs and unders are good early. Traditionally, not always. There's always exceptions. And then as the season goes on, from like spring into summer, game times get a lot shorter usually until Worlds. Worlds sometimes mix things up.
Well, and
So
even in those type of tournaments, EU Masters, Worlds, like the first game in a round robin situation, like I love taking unders in those
oh yeah,
situations.
because
You do
everyone's
see a lot of
overcautious.
those teams, especially in like an EU Masters or proving
Yeah,
grounds.
they're
when
nervous.
Exactly. So you asked me if I have a lean here. I don't
Yeah, do you have a lean to the
necessarily
side?
from a betting standpoint. I think that from a DFS standpoint, a lot of people will be on Anyone's Legend. I like Ultra Prime for two reasons. Their stock is super low right now. I don't think
Yep.
people are going to go ahead and look at who they just played to lose these 6 games or these 3 series, and they'll just see the scores or they'll see the record. Any variety, or they'll just remember them losing and then
They'll
playing
just
with
see
it.
that they get murdered when they lose. That's the thing. That has like
That's
like a
true.
price memory thing, right? Like when you see a team just get annihilated, think about Dignitas the first 2 weeks, right? Dignitas looks like a dead team. They had nothing going on. It's like they got smoked. Anybody that gets down that far is going to look terrible. Okay, like that's what, like it's just the way it happens sometimes. You can't
Well, then
like.
you
Yeah,
add that to the fact that they're expensive. They're the
yeah.
most expensive on the slate.
I think there's a good chance that they're just like not going to be owned at all. I was talking to Nathan about this and a couple other people, and like this might be like one of those next leveling things where like everyone's kind of sharp enough to know like, okay, everyone's gonna be on Anyone's Legend. Maybe I'll bump up a little bit more Ultra Prime, right? But like, I don't know, man. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
I
have some
mean,
Ultra Prime. I can tell you that much. I
it's one
just
of
put
those
actually
things, though.
before we got on here, I just put all my lineups. But
Well, you'll be able to wake up and know where you're at.
yeah, that too. You'll know if you're dead.
All right, so let's go to the next game.
Should be a good match, by the way. Like just to close up on that one, it should be a good match. And interestingly, like this has massive playoff implications for both of those teams because there's a good chance they're going to be battling for like the 9th or 10th spot, and whoever has the tiebreaker that could end up make or breaking their season. So
there's quite a few teams battling for that 9th or 10th spot that
yeah,
are just simply playing today. Nongshim and Sandbox are not two of those teams. This series is it's strange for me because I was very high on Nongshim, not as actually like a team. Like I wasn't high on them as like this is a good team. I was high on them from a fantasy perspective. I thought that they, more than a lot of teams within the LCK, at least showed a tendency to want to fight, even despite the durability patch. Like, but I think that was really just kind of a blip, and that was just variance, outlier games, because that hasn't necessarily been the case since those like 2 opening series. On the other hand, we have the Sandbox team that, look, they're not a top tier team in the LCK, but they kind of feel to me like the summer version of the spring Kwangdong, where they're going to beat teams like Nongshim. They're going to beat teams like KDF and Bro. They'll be competitive with that team that's like right around there, like DRX, but
yeah.
they'll probably lose to Genji, T1, and maybe Damwon. I don't even know if we can classify them in that tier, but I don't think that they're at this tier yet. So I really like Sandbox here, and I think that on a 5-game slate, playing a favorite from the LCK is always something that you can do if that's a real thing.
Yeah, something we didn't mention when we were talking more big picture about like the chalk dogs and Anyone's Legend and all that is that because this is a 5-game slate, that might actually kind of cut into that whole effect a little more. Like if this was a 4, it sounds weird just adding one more match, but it just adds that many more combinations that are possible for you, and some pricing flexibility potentially too. So maybe that Anyone's Legends, maybe they're not going to be 40% owned or whatever. They're still going to be elevated, but because you have an extra set of options here, maybe that's not the case. I'm with you here. So Nongshim, it's like tragic, man. Like I don't know. anybody that's read my stuff knows I was pretty bullish on this team coming into the season, but sometimes you got to cut bait. And I don't know, like this team's still doing a decent job in the first like 20 minutes of the game. They just can't close for shit. Like they just can't do it. Even against KT last week, like they should have won that. They should have won that series.
And KT is not like this team that is a bunch of closers, as can be.
Yeah, they had a really bad week this week. Like this weekend, honestly.
But this is what KT has been. This is what Nongshim has been. There are a couple teams that
Guangdong too
just feel like they don't know how to win all of a sudden. Not really or just never have. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, I Nongshim. Like there's certain teams where it's like okay, like they have the players, right? Like they have the individuals that they shouldn't be as bad as they are. And that's okay. Sometimes you have teams that underperform a little bit or a lot of it. That's whatever, right? It's when, I mean, we're going to get to Billy later too, but like that's another situation where it's like you look at the individuals on this team. It's like, how is this team not in like the top 6, right? Like, Anyway, we'll get to that later. Yeah, Nongshim, when they get down in games, they get blown out. Is the other problem, right? Like I have them like they have a middling like goal per minute in losses, which is something I actually keep track of because so I like to see the thing is when they have they have high goal per minute in losses, you have to go through and actually look at the team because if that's because they're throwing games that they should have won, that's not really indicative of being competitive in losses, right? It's competitive in games that they should have won that turned into losses, right? It's kind of I differentiate the two. So you got to kind of like look past the numbers a little bit. Whereas Sandbox have been kind of like, well, when Sandbox is ahead, they are more or less not throwing, and they've actually won a bunch of games from behind. They've gotten lucky a few times, but
that's been Sandbox all year.
Yeah,
like Sandbox has not changed their profile. They've been this team that's going to give you like 15 to 17 in a win. Some weeks, some series they're on, some series they aren't, but they're going to do most of those as a team. And
Sandbox are confident. That's the difference.
And they've been getting better. I think they have a roster that wasn't really sure who they were. They now have a little bit more. They had like Ice and Envy in the ADC. Not that those guys weren't good, but they weren't. Now they have some continuity to their lineup, and they've grown together, and they've gotten some confidence. I wouldn't be surprised if Nongshim wins this because, again, Sandbox has not done anything to make me super bullish on them, but I'm close. I'm close in this match, and I like Sandbox. I don't know how the pricing, you've done your lineups. I haven't looked at it, but from a betting standpoint, I'm probably abstaining here. I'm certainly not looking at totals. But I kind of like the Sandbox money line. I don't have a problem with it, but I'm probably not playing that. So
yeah, I played Sandbox money line here. It's you know what they are actually? They're like kind of like the diet version of DRX, right? Like they're like DRX is what they are, but like if they had the players, like the individual talent, right? And it's not that they're lacking. It's just like you look at this roster and it's like okay, like Krako's had his time where he's been up and down. Like when he's good, he's good. We've seen him in the past be like a hard carry closer. We know what he's capable of. And then like Doves, switch from mid to top. And then you have this, now it's more known, but you had kind of an unknown bottom lane, and then all the shuffling around until they figured that out. Now they're a confident team that has an identity, and we've seen in League of Legends before that's just a recipe for overachieving, right? Like even if we're not saying this team's going to win the league or even like win a playoff match or something, but like they're a team. They are doing what Brion did the last like 18 months until this season, right? They know who they are. We're going to do the same shit every game. We have our identity. We play as a team, and we play to that identity, even if we don't have the players to break matchups and do all sorts of cool, wild stuff. They just know who they are, and there's like a certain like qualitative bump you have to give to teams like that, unless it's something that can be abused. The thing is, teams like Nongshim, teams like the bottom half of the LCK or the bottom half of most leagues, they're not going to be able to take advantage of that unless they're specifically geared toward it, and they aren't. So I really like Live Sandbox here. Like by the numbers, I made them bigger favorites than this. Qualitatively, I think they're in a better spot right now. I like Live Sandbox on the money line quite a bit.
Yeah, I think I like that, but I also, if you wanted to just add to that position, make it a little more complex, I don't think like the -4.5. When Sandbox wins, it's usually a snowball. They get a huge lead in terms of kills, at least.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
the same thing when Nongshim loses, it's not close. And the fact that this is 4.5, I don't know. I kind of like that. But again, when you're doing this in non-best of one situations, you're throwing one on each one of these games, hoping that they sweep. If they go ahead and win map 3, you get a unit. But at that point, you put
I think at that point you're
3.15 units. You're better with the money line.
Spread. Or the money, you're taking the money line or the map spread, I think is a better way to do it. Or if you're going to do that, I think just pick a map first or second.
Yeah.
Like they're going to have side choice, and if they lose map 1, they're going to have side choice in 2, which you would assume gives them a bump. Although there's not as much side dominance in the LCK as there is in the LPL. It's still, where is it? It's still like 52.5 to 48, 47.5 in favor of blue, but that's like a far cry from what it is in the LPL. So, yeah, I like Sandbox to sweep this. We'll see.
Okay. So I don't want to spend too much time on this one, though. Like my only plays from a DFS standpoint is kind of that Sandbox bottom lane. Maybe you throw the jungler in there. I think Dove is completely unplayable right now, which maybe is the reason that you plug him in. But I have seen this massive shift. Like there are the haves and have-nots of the top laners. There are the guys that have good kill share and good kill participation. And then there are guys that like had a little bit, but like have just completely disappeared. And Dove has been one of those guys.
Yeah,
and you can look at his box scores and
Dove's weird because like he's actually getting significantly better as a top laner, but he's not good for fantasy purposes. He's kind of like a little bit like Faker for T1. Where like you look at the stuff he's doing and it's like, holy shit, this dude still got it. He's still good. He can do everything. He's outsmarting people that are, it seems like no amount of these crazy young talented players can come up and unseat him, right? Like maybe for brief periods of time, but he's also not producing at an insane fantasy level, right? Compared to some of the other mid laners.
Well, and like the biggest situation is when you're looking at a team like Sandbox and you're considering them, at least for DFS, like a 1560 is basically what he is, kill share, kill participation in wins. That doesn't work on a team that's 15 to 17 kills in a win. And consistently, and that's what they were in spring. You need that 70, and that's like what everybody else. Closer is the other one. Like you want to play Krakow, Kale, and Prince, or just like 2 of them.
The other thing with Sandbox specifically is that like we talked about how they're confident they have their identity. Well, their identity is just feeding the shit out of Prince. Like they put all the resources into that basket, and it is what it is. So, if you're gonna play carry, if you're gonna play small stack or a one-off, Prince is the way to go on Sandbox.
Yeah, I mean, you can almost like even consider him in some crazy one-offs. I would assume
he's reminding me a little bit of like Janae or Teddy. Like the way this team's playing, where it's just, or like Deft last year, where it's like DRX is just okay, or not Deft, like Taeyun and whoever else they had. Like it's like, all right, we're just playing around bottom lane every single game, and that's it.
I think it's like Teddy now. It's like aiming now. It's like a lot of the ADCs within this league from teams that aren't very good, and they're all very similar. And I almost think that if you're playing Nongshim, like they have some other pieces, but Ghost is kind of profiled like that more so in summer than he did in spring. Ghost was like one of the guys that you wanted maybe to like not include in your sack, but like
or to like just get different,
like Ghost is the guy you kind of want right now. And BDD, despite that first couple of good series, he's at like a 15% kill share and not like his kill participation's better, but like kind of is the guy that you want with Ghost. If you're playing Nongshim, you can fill it in from there, but I never feel good playing effort.
Or Dread's actually a pretty decent play for them too.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is when there's 3 of them, you have to either pick a 4th one or you're doing like a 3-3 or something like that, team slot off, and maybe that's something that you can do on this slate. I don't know, but
the kind of Dread stack, if you're going to get a little funky, can be good.
Yeah, but when you're doing that, and one of the dynamics that you have
So
to
risky.
find is, well, you need to find another top laner or a jungle carry that goes with it. Because if you're
Yeah.
playing Dread, that means you're playing a jungle captain. And on a slate that had like JDG, like that's playable because you can play a
You just
guy
play
like
Kanavi.
Kanavi.
Yeah.
But like on this one, I mean, you're not playing either of these junglers. You're not playing. You can't play this jungler. You're not playing this one as a captain.
You know,
You're
one
probably not
thing.
playing anybody from there. I mean, maybe Wei, like you, Wei is the one that you
Maybe.
could do that with.
I say, you know, what's interesting is like something I've been looking at is, you know, I've been, I guess the theme of like this year and last year, like I'm trying to step back and take bigger picture, like macro trend looks at things. And I think we all kind of do this a little bit just in our day to day, like subconsciously, like you're taking mental notes. It's like a mental model for this kind of stuff, right? But I've been trying to like actually look and
VMI,
see.
Visual Memory
Yeah.
Index, or something like that.
Yeah.
Totally
And
like that.
I've been looking like positionally, like what are the like what positions are scoring well for like DFS purposes in each league. And it's like the beginning of the LPL season, it was like jungle season. Right, like all the jungles for most of the teams they were like the second or the highest scoring player on the team, right? Like that, like the positional average across the league was through the roof. It's kind of settled back down, and it's starting to look like I think the patch has kind of helped with this, but it's starting to look like AD carry is kind of king again in terms of like your mean performance or whatever. But just like keeping an eye on that kind of stuff, and you could look at things like deviation or variance on like individual performances and stuff like that to see like what kind of like the spike performances, like who's actually having the huge spike performances. Is it, you know, the jungles most of the time, or is it the mid laners? And I've been looking into a lot of that kind of stuff, and I think generally like LPL, like you have high kill participation in the LCK but lower totals. We've talked about that to death, right?
Sure.
But generally like the LPL junglers are still scoring a lot better. So like I'm more inclined to play a jungle captain from the LPL than I am the LCK.
And you know, it's important to like take a look at each one of the leagues individually. I think in spring, like, or at least no, last year, the LEC, and nobody really talked about it, but the LEC was a jungle captain
Oh
haven,
yeah.
and people didn't play it that way though. You had like
Inspired
Whippo,
was
Inspired, yeah,
what...
like you had these guys that were doing this, and then people eventually, but you couldn't do that in the LCS as an example. Like it was a complete divergence between the two leagues. And right now, like it's hard. Like you can't do it in the LCS right now unless you're playing maybe Inspired. Spica scores well and wins, but like Santorin has not been relevant at all. I don't know.
The reason this is important, guys, is like especially if you're like multi-entering, like any kind of thing that can shave down like permutations that you're gonna have to do is a huge advantage to you. Like anything at all. Like you already kind of have to, you know, plant your flag in certain spots, right? Just to like cut down on the amount of, you know, stuff you're gonna have, or to diversify your exposure. But if you can shave it down a little bit by just like dodging stuff that's most of the time a dud, like that's good. That can be a big advantage over time. It might not manifest right away, but keep an eye on this kind of stuff. I think that doesn't get talked about. Like we'll bring it up from time to time if it's like a couple weeks in a row. Like, oh man, like 3 or 4 days we had top captain's Bink, right? Top captain Bink today, right? I think Shanji just went berserk today, right?
Well, it not only that, but there were just only so many options that you had, and I think most of like the chalk team, most of the chalk teams, look, the LCK was very low scoring.
Yeah.
The LPL had higher scores, and you really had like 3 options you could play with 369 as a captain, or you were playing support captain, and and Chanji is the absolute, you know, 1A 1B kind of carry to, like, I mean he's has some monster games even on champions that he maybe shouldn't, but they gave him his rumble and you knew it was going to happen, you know.
Yeah, especially with those two teams, it's like, all right, here we go.
All right, so hey, look, we are 2 games in and we've talked for an hour.
It's a philosophy
So
podcast. Oh,
yeah, hey,
I got one more
go
quick
ahead.
thing.
Go
I
ahead.
played the time total unders, and this is kind of a trend that I don't know if you've caught on to this, but this patch is way different. Also, these teams are starting to learn that like you can actually just try to go underneath these scaling teams, and the games are starting to there's a big divergence. Like you're not having as many games land in that middle area. Like the curve's
Mhm.
flattening a little bit, if that makes sense, right? Like you're not having like a distribution where everything's kind of landing in the center like a normal distribution would have, right? Like there's a lot more outlier situations for in terms of like the game time total. Kill totals are still kind of a different thing, but I think right now you're seeing a lot of games go way under, and I think you can get in the LCK specifically because the overs got so juiced up and the game average game time was so long early in the season, the adjustments taking longer. So I had like plus 110 or plus 114 or something like that on the under 34 today in Gen G and T1. Like, yeah, those two teams are competitive and they're evenly matched, but like they're also very good at snowballing games. So somebody was going to win, and that was like no brainer. It was not even close every single game today. These two teams
Yeah.
are a little
So
bit different, but I took the under 33.5 at plus money. It's my
well,
favorite
so
place.
Bovada does not offer time totals, dragon totals,
Mm-hmm.
tower totals, baron totals. So a lot of those I don't pay
Just
close
something to know
attention
for
to.
people that have it as an option, I'll say.
Yeah. All right.
Anyway.
Well, let's get into another game, and I think that this is one that, I mean, I don't know how many people are going to go to this one outside of the LCK games. Again, I don't know about the pricing, but if there was ever a buy low time on this BLG team, it's probably right now. And this is a team that I'm considering heavily for DFS. The fact that it's on a 5-game slate makes it a little bit better that the jungler is not there, because I don't even know if I would trust playing the jungler. Bin has absolutely terrible kill participation, terrible kill share, but this BLG team, look, they should be better, and maybe this is what they needed. Maybe they'll come out and look like a shit show, and that's a good probability. But what I do know is they're playing Weibo, and Weibo is Weibo is not a team that like they're not a team that I feel very comfortable with. Saying anything for certain. They've had some points and times and within this calendar year when I'm like, all right, they figured it out. When they beat EDG last split, and like I was like, man, they're the best team in the LPL, and they were at that moment. They were the best team. But like 2 weeks later, they went on like a 3-match losing streak, and I was like, well, they suck again. And here it was like, man, maybe they've like, I'm not going to hold it against them that they lost to EDG. I'm not going to hold it against them that they lost to RNG. I think that they're in that tier. They can win. They took a game off of RNG. Yeah, so they got beat by WE. Who cares? Like it happens.
You can't
right?
just say that though.
But look, they took care of business in the other two. They just
They
something
did.
happened in that game. They beat RA. They beat Up. I'm like, man, these guys, they
around.
got it again. And then they lose to Top Esports, and that's okay. Like that's not a bad loss, right?
No.
But it is when you start to accumulate all of these things, you start to say, well, they're not a lock here. They can lose. Yeah. And this is a spot where I think more people will feel comfortable playing Weibo or just not playing this game at all.
I think people are going to be off this game.
And from a total perspective,
it's lower.
I agree. Like this isn't one where I want to bet the overs. Like maybe I do if it's like Weibo is an over team, and then that's not the perception that people have of them. But you look at their totals, and a lot of these games, unless they're just getting absolutely smashed, which I don't think that they will in this series, these are higher totals than like a 24 or 23.
They're not afraid. They're not afraid to fight back in games that they're losing.
The problem is that BLG is like all over the fucking place.
Yeah, I mean, BLG. 15. Do you know why they are? Do you know why they're all over the place?
Because they're all over the place in everything, and they have no continuity in their lineup, and they have no they can't team fight. Their drafts are bad sometimes. They have absolutely no identity.
They have. I mean, I've harped on it, writing a lot about like their problems around vision and setting up for neutral objectives and just like general team fighting. Like it seems like nobody's calling the shots for this team. Now, Fofo is going to be back in the mix. I think that could probably help things. But yeah, the reason that they're all over the place is because their games sometimes end up all over the place. There's games that this team has that they should have no business losing, and they just get lazy around a dragon fight, and then all of a sudden the other team, takes a 4 for 2, picks up a dragon, and it's a game all of a sudden, and then they end up winning. It doesn't matter if they win or lose it. There's a couple extra fights in that game now, right?
I think the other thing that go ahead. Sorry.
No, I mean, I think what's weird about this matchup is, and I wanted to touch on Weibo too. Like, is there a real sports comp for this team? It's not that they play up and play down, but they 100% take games off. Like, they will take matches off. They were like this when it was Suning too, before the Shy got there too. Like,
maybe they're like LeBron, like sometimes he's got to take days off. He's 37.
Yeah, maybe or maybe they just go out and party like some weekends. I have no idea, but
I don't know if they can party in China.
They really have this. It's so frustrating because like when they look good, they look like the best team in the league. They look so good when they're on. All right, maybe they're not like a 3-5 or RNG level, but they're like in that tier, right?
I'm looking at it right now, and I'm looking at one of the things that I was going to say is that, like, Doggo has his strengths. Like, when we saw him at MSI last year, Aphelios was really strong, and he looked just fantastic on Aphelios. And that was the case in spring. 8-4 on Aphelios, looked good. You know who they keep drafting for him, and he just didn't look good in spring, hasn't looked good here, and the win rate does say that. He's not an Ezreal guy. And I think he likes playing Ezreal and wants to play Ezreal, but like, I don't know, like the team, you need a lot more. And I know maybe you'll disagree with me, but like Ezreal versus Jinx, you need your team to kind of do a lot more for you. I know you need to play around the Jinx too, but
I think it's the opposite. But here's the thing, right? When you pick Ezreal, it's either a we don't know what else to pick, or a we need something safe, like self-sufficient, like something that can protect itself, or the third thing is the player does not think he's going to be well protected and he's going to have to peel for himself, and you get a combination of like the second and third point I just made, right? So I think some of their drafts have worked out where they've just taken him. My bet would be that like he's like, I'm not getting any help. And again, this goes back to like their vision and their neutral setup. Like, part of the problem with it is that they're not making cohesive calls on like they're not having good target selection. They're not setting the edge. Like, they're not setting the line for him to be the quarterback behind, right? Like, a lot of games, he's just left out to dry. There's been so many situations where he ends up looking like an idiot, and sometimes it is his fault. There's been a lot of games where he ends up looking like an idiot, and it's like not even his fault. There's just like nothing he can do, right? Like, what'd they do? They played Cogball the other day, right? It was like last week.
Yeah,
they tried to play a Cogball game, and I was like, what do you like a team like this? I like the idea of making the game plan super simple, but when they're not even executing on that kind of stuff, it's like I almost don't blame him for wanting to fend for himself. Like, play more Lucian. I don't hate the Gwen. Not the Gwen. I don't hate the
that would be like
I don't hate the Zeri. I don't hate the Ezreal. I like Lucian.
Do you think we could see him on Aphelios in both games? So let me paint a situation here. How does BLG win this? How are they justified in your lineup? And them winning 2 games in a row against Weibo, or 2 out of 3, I don't think is outside of the realm of possibilities. No. I think it's very close. The odds probably are a little bit off, in my opinion. But I think he could get 2 games of Aphelios. Like, we've seen Aphelios played a lot more recently. And maybe they're coaches who are probably pretty smart guys, probably smarter than, us here on the Shark Cove. Those LPL drafts are always cutting edge and really, playing to team strengths and other teams' weaknesses. Maybe they'll see it. Like, it's not like Aphelios. Like, look, it's not like Aphelios is a priority pick that, like, you're not going to have the opportunity to take him.
Stop picking it at the Jinx, please.
Like, you'll get to play Aphelios, though. Like, you'll get to play him.
Yeah.
And he's not going to get banned. The other team's probably not going to take him. I mean, you can get him early enough.
Just take some good stuff that's Just please take the good things when you don't have to take your bottom lane, right? Like, I don't know. This is weird. Like, this price to me, I was hoping to get a better price on this.
Are they blue side first? Do they have pick?
They are blue side first.
Okay.
Which is part of why I was like, all right, I feel a little bit better about this. But yeah, we didn't even talk about it, but like Can's gonna play, right? I've watched a little bit of this guy. It's not like nothing he did blew me away, but he was pretty good in the LDL. I was like, before this season started, I watched a couple of these guys that could potentially step into situations as starters on pretty good teams, and then they signed way away. So I was like, all right, well, whatever. But I did watch a couple games, and he's all right. I'm more excited about Fofo being back because, I mean, the evidence ended up bearing it out. Like, the identity of this team is a lot clearer when he's in the lineup, and I don't know if it's because he's calling the shots or if it's just he's got that give me the rock mentality, which I think this team needed. But he's not like Icon, where Icon only goes one direction. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not a bad thing, but that was not a good fit for a team that's not all on the same page right now. You know what I'm saying?
I
think Fofo's also just a better player. Like, let's be real here. He's just a better player, and he can play everything. So,
yeah. I mean, yeah, I like BLG here. I do. You could tell me I'm stupid, and anybody could tell me I'm stupid, and I'd be like, yeah, I'm a fucking idiot. But like, I think I'm gonna play.
They're gonna have like no ownership.
I think I'm gonna play like some up BLG. I think that's kind of where I'm interested.
BLG, Nongshim, BLG, maybe that's a little low kill potential. One of the top RNG with BLG, I think, is very real.
And I think I might, take a small stab at like one of these like 27.5 and not even like go for the 24.5, just like a half unit on like the 27.5 or a half unit on a 28.5. Just throwing something out there, sprinkling it out there in the world, especially the first one. Because if we're talking about blue side and we're talking about ways to attack some of these games
and teams that throw games,
but look, so BLG, when they win, save that one game against EDG, 22, 23, 19, 24. Again, we're not talking about those early games. So, the small sample of 3 games against completely different teams than what we're talking about in Weibo. But not only did they get a lot of kills, they gave up a lot of kills. 14, 5, and 10. And when you look at Weibo, that's another thing that, they're not like one of those rollover teams. Like, they're going to give you 5 or 6. I think you can get into that 27, 28 area. And you're getting appropriate odds for it. It's not a likely scenario. It happens maybe 1 out of 3 times, which is what it is when BLG wins. So I think it actually happens 2 out of 3 times when BLG wins, and you're getting the odds that it happens 1 out of 3 times. You're just trying to account for a BLG win, but you're getting that added 65% chance that they win because they're on the blue side. So maybe what you do, even if you think BLG loses this series and you don't want to bet the 138, but you want to just kind of get some action down here, another way to attack this is you can go map kill total like 27.5 right here, and then bet BLG at plus 120 on the first map.
Yeah, I don't hate taking like altovers. Like, if you're getting 2-1 on an altover, like, there's a pretty decent chance one of these games is going to go over, like, regardless. Like, we talked about it. Like, BLG will be in leads, be in good situations, and just screw it up. They do it all the time. And part of screwing leads up, sometimes you just lose on the spot, and those are like the worst case scenario, right? Where it's like, they're up 10-6 or whatever, but they have like a 4K gold lead, they get aced at Baron and lose the game. Like, that's the worst case scenario, right? But more frequently with this team, what happens is they'll be ahead like 1,500, 2,000 gold. Maybe they got a couple kills on Doggo. They'll have like the 3rd or 4th dragon fight, and they just like Doggo just gets left out to dry, dies. They lose the fight, right? Then maybe it's like a 4 for 2. They get aced and maybe take a couple with. They res in time so the other team can't get Baron, and all of a sudden you've got a game where it's like, okay, like there's already 20 kills in this game. This could get off the rails real quick, right? That's what
maybe they like pick Callista, they get the lead, but then they don't realize that they need to press it. I mean, that was one of the things.
Exactly.
Like LNG yesterday in that first game, like recognized that they had the lead, they had to press it, and when they saw the opportunities, they were all on the same page. Like that wasn't LNG stereotypical to what you talk about, where they weren't clean around objectives. They were very clean in that first game.
They looked a lot better.
They looked disgustingly worse in the next two.
That
but
first
like
game,
that
they looked
first
a lot
one,
better. Yeah,
I was like, damn, this is one of I hadn't watched an LNG series in depth in a while, and like that one, I was just like, oh man, they look clean here. And then the second game, I was like, oh no, they don't look clean here. They look like they have absolutely no idea what they're doing.
I
so
love
that could happen.
Fantasy, man. Like because like sometimes it's feast or famine. Like she gets behind early, it's like, oh, this game's just over. It's like it's just going to be a dud, right? The thing is, though, there's so many games, and this is why people hate the champion. The champion's insanely powerful, but the reason people hate it is because there's games where it gets so far ahead, and then all these fights just get scrappy. The other team stalls it out, and then like all of a sudden you've got like a stalemate, and you're going to have a bunch of big ass team fights, and the Callista's going to end up getting outscaled or something. That's why people hate it. It's also why it's great for fantasy, because it has these explosive games. It's a catalyst for creating explosive games, regardless of who ends up scoring high.
I think the reason sometimes people don't like it for fantasy is because you never feel safe. Like even if you have a lead, like you need to get a lead first of all. So if you don't have the lead, you're like, well, fuck, I'm screwed.
You're like
right?
dead in the water.
Like it's not like, oh, I have a jinx that can just pop off in a fight and they can win my team the game and then just snowball from there. Or we'll get to 3 items, we'll fight for the Nexus, we'll ace them, and then we'll ace them again, and all of a sudden you can't kill the jinx and she just kills everybody, right?
Yeah.
Like those type of situations don't happen with the Callista. Like you need to get ahead and you need to stay ahead and you need to like build on the lead. And that's why it's kind of frustrating because teams don't always recognize that. Speaking of games that like you just have like an ace at a fight, like the game 3 with OMGWE, like I literally thought it was over. I was about to type something. I thought it was over. I looked at the odds. It was like plus 340 for OMG. It was grayed out. And I'm like, man, like they let him get ahead. Like, and now they're just too far behind. And then like I look up at the screen and it's just like, boom, they just aced him. And it was like, never mind. This is over. Just the other way.
Yeah. So that was the Samira game, right?
Yes. Like the Samira couldn't do anything.
Samira's another one, by the way, that's just like Callista, where it's like, okay, either the Samira player is going to have like, 10 kills and 8 assists, and they're going to go completely ballistic, or they're going to go 0-4, and this is going to be donezo, right?
Well, but it was such an incredibly bad, like, why are you picking Samira there as your R5? When you've got like an Azir, like you get just so many people, like your alt's worthless. They just happened to get that like perfect hook, the package, and it was like it didn't matter. Everybody was dead by the time.
For bad behavior, man. That's
yeah. And it was. I was just like, yeah, this is just crazy. So let's go into the next game. This is the game that has the the most risk involved in it, but not in what some people might think. Like the risk is not from a betting standpoint. I probably am not betting anything in this series. If I do, I don't think I can ever replicate the I said 14.5. That's just super low. It hits sometimes, but I'm not interested in this. HLE is bad. They somehow find a way to win a game in a lot of series. I don't think that they do that. Although, like, man, this Damwon team has just fallen to a level that it just seems average based on the standards that we have for them. But they're not a team that you want for DFS. They do pop off every once in a while, and this being a 2-0, this could be one of those series. This is going to be a team that should be completely overlooked on this slate. I wouldn't play it in any 3 max. I'm not playing it because they don't give them to you anymore. I wouldn't play it in a 2 max. I wouldn't play it in a single entry. But if I was playing one of the multi-entry tournaments, I think positioning yourself on Damwon is a sharp play as long as you understand it's only a sharp play like 1 out of 100 times, and you're probably going to lose. And we already saw one of those times, so I don't want any part of the bets.
This is
I'm probably not going to play much more than Damwon team slot.
Yeah, I have some small stacks, but yeah, this is a weird one because if you look at just quantitatively, like this is a whole like close your eyes special, right? Like just take Damwon take Hanwha to take a map, and hold your nose and just know that you bet a good number, and it is what it is, right? But qualitatively, Damwon really don't make a lot of mistakes. They just don't win big. Like they're not. They're a team that they choke you out, but it ain't pretty. They're not going to put up these bombastic goal differentials. They just slowly choke you out of the game, and they almost never screw things up, and that's that. I say
when they were fun, though. I liked when they were fun.
Yeah, it's boring. It's not great for fantasy, but like this is still a good team. But one thing I'll mention is in that DRX series, they made a lot of like micro mistakes, like individual, like just execution mistakes that you almost never see from this team. So if you want to kind of go on narrative street and play that angle and be like, oh, well, maybe they're just not in good form right now. Maybe there's a little something to that, but yeah, I'll say this. The numbers said this was a slam dunk, huge advantage Hanwha spot, and I didn't touch it. So
yeah, I mean, you look at these. So the problem with Damwon too is that even if they have one of these pop off games, like so, for example, against KT, I didn't play them. I think this was an obvious like amazing series for them from a fantasy spot. I woke up, I looked at my phone, I was like, oh wow, Damwon won 19-6. Well, that kind of just screws everything because I don't have Damwon, but I'm gonna go back to sleep, and there's just a possibility that they win the next game like 10-7, and there's not the impact. They won, they put up 23, and that kind of ruined that entire slate. You had to have Damwon, but there's just a good possibility that either they do drop a game, and B, if they drop a game and have to go into that third game, I just don't see them trying to press the advantage, try to get some kills. They're more than okay with trying to take like a 3K goal lead into, the fourth dragon fight or whatever the case is. And quite frankly, Hanwha has more of a reputation being a high death team than I think that they really are. I mean, yeah, they have some of these like 18s and
they had a couple outlier games. Yeah,
they're still a 15.5 when it comes to death per loss. You're talking about a 15.5 and a 14.2 playing against each other, and I just on a 5-game slate, I can't do it. I just can't do it. I'll probably have like one in the 15. I'm not playing a ton in the 15, but that's the advantage I'm looking for in the 15. I'm certainly not playing this in the 333 or the 10 or the 5.
I think the only reason you play Damwon is because you're hoping to get you don't want to sit there and hope for like those 1% outcomes, like a double 20+ kill series, because they're not going to happen that often with this team, right? And especially not against Hanwha if it's a different team, maybe. But you don't want to sit there and hope for that. What you might consider is like an average performance from them, and the ownership is just dead, and maybe one of these other games bricks, like one of these other series bricks. Then it's okay. I actually think that that should be that's like to me a better justification for playing them if you're going to like small stacks or team slot.
The problem is you need that there are 3, I think, decent series, and you need all of them to brick, and then you almost like need the other LCK series, which I think has a higher probability. Like this there's just it's tough to get behind this. And again, I don't know the pricing. We'll get into that very shortly here. But I would suspect with all these games being relatively close in odds that the pricing allows you to do a lot more, especially with some of the underdogs that you want to play, that you're not like forced into, a handful of combinations unless you want to get like real cute with your lineups. So I'm not turning my back on the LCK spell. I'm not doing that. I did like Sandbox. I think Sandbox is a great small stack, or a 3 stack with a team slot, maybe from the other team, maybe from that team. I don't know. Maybe you could go Damwon team slot. I like Damwon team slot.
I like Damwon team slot quite a bit because like there's a reasonable chance they just have 2 4-dragon sweeps and just clean sweep, like literally just like a 63-point sweep, like double under 30 minutes, double 4-dragon sweep in the games.
They're 5,800 though, so never mind. I thought
you're not getting good value, but like they're not getting good value. But if you want to get different, like there's a chance that that's the only like clean sweep on the board. Like
we talked about the AL pricing. We definitely did. I don't think that this is true, Spell. For a guy that posts ownership, you know better than that. So look, I don't want to take too much more time on this one. I think we've covered everything that we need to there.
Who's the only playable player for Damon, do you think?
Decano.
I think Duck Dom could snowball a bottom lane advantage. Like maybe you get a double Callista situation and he just goes nuts and they end the game in 25 minutes. Like that's very, very feasible. So
yeah, like when you look at these numbers too, and like you've got Canyon at 16 and 72, Dex at 37 and 73. Callan, you can play him with the bottom lane because he's like a 7%, 81. That 7's just high, probably because he played like a Tom Kench game or something like that. Naguri is at 19 and 64. Like that's average, but it's not exceptional. And then Showmaker's at 18 and 64. Like none of these guys seem like they care anymore. Like, I don't know, maybe Mad Lions ruined them. Like they almost lost to Mad Lions and then, they won MSI and it's just, I don't know.
I will say Naguri's looked really, really good actually.
He's been collecting bugs, man. You're the bug.
I fucking love it. Oh,
man.
man.
Well, that's cool. Good,
bug collector captains only. Is that what we're doing here?
Canyon 11-0-5 on Belvath in a scrim.
Yeah, maybe this is just the Canyon, hey guys, I still exist game, but we'll see.
I don't know, man. I will tell you that these guys on Dam 1 are really good at playing like whatever that guessing game was that they played in the half. They knew all the champions. No clues needed. They just like pointed at a guy and they're like, oh yeah, no.
They're a bunch of nerds. Like alpha nerds, those guys. They're professional video gamers and bug collectors, dude. How many people?
Cody, I don't know if you've been watching the whole time, but we did reference the VMI earlier. I don't remember in regards to what, but we did have a little VMI reference earlier. He'll get that. Let's go into the game that could be. Look, it could be 11:30. I have a meeting with a client at 10 o'clock, an upset client who will not meet with anybody else except for somebody new, and that's just me, like new to him. Both my bosses are not allowed there, so like I have to go and smooth things over. So I'm super excited about it. That's what I get to do at 10 a.m. So maybe when I'm leaving there, I will have this game still on as I drive to my second appointment. But Top Esports comes in against RNG. RNG, it is a coin flip right here, right? And this is a game where I think that you can bet overs, but I wouldn't be surprised if like one of these teams like rolls the other one. But I have this game I have this series projected super high.
Me too.
I just think RNG wins though, and I think you don't play. Looking at the numbers, looking at my projections, I think you smash Gala if you're playing, but like Xiaohu is not necessarily a must play anymore.
Xiaohu, I don't know, man. Xiaohu's got a crazy high floor, but yeah, Gala's just got the explosion games that you're looking for in like a GPP situation. I gotta say, like I don't know, you kind of like the BLG. I like the BLG look too. I like the Ultra Prime look. My favorite, I mean, I'll just say it straight out. My favorite look on this is just like a straight up 4-3, like Ultra Prime RNG for like GPPs. I know that's crazy. Sure. It's just like a 4-3, but like every iteration of that. Because I actually think this is the sharp play on the board this week, or for this this slate tomorrow. Like pick us, like honestly, either side of this, because I think either side of this is gonna win. Like I think you're gonna have at least two, maybe three high scoring games. You're gonna want a piece of whoever ends up winning this.
And like you're gonna so what's gonna happen is Doug's is gonna have like a BLG up stack. He's gonna be in first place going into this series right here, and he's just gonna be so mad that somebody passed him somewhere. Maybe I will be. Maybe I'm gonna be the guy. I'm gonna be the guy that like is upset. Like I'm gonna go into the meeting. Like, all right, shit, I'm in first place. I've got this. I'm good. I'm going to come out, and I'm not even going to be cashing. That literally could be what happens here because the discords are mushing. But yeah, when you look at these two teams and you look at the totals that they've had, I think the alternate totals on these smash, I mean, I think it's 25.5 is what the books have it at. RNG has been over that pretty consistently, with like the exception of just a really like outlier game, I think, against OMG, a loss against V5. And this is a team that like, who has top has blue side choice, right?
Top has side selection.
So one of the things that I've noticed, and you can look at this trend, is that RNG comes out flat in these series.
Yes, they do.
They've had 3 of these situations where they've lost the first game, probably when they were on red side. I don't know that for a fact, but top comes out, wins the first game. You back top. You have top in your lineup, and you're like, yes, these are the guys. They did it. They did it. They just need to win one of these next 2 games, and then they'll blow the next 2 games. They'll lose the next game because they'll be on red side, and then somehow RNG at that point will have gotten their reps in. They're just the better team, and they'll beat top, and maybe it's not even a bloody last game, but like the second game, I just see this series playing out similar to the V5 series.
Like top smash the first game, and then RNG win 2 slugfests in the next 2. That kind of thing.
like RNG loses the first game in like an 18-4 fashion.
Yeah.
Then they just absolutely demolish the second game, and then unlike against Victory 5, they actually win the third game. And maybe they win that game.
And then Bowman wins everything. So something that's interesting about this, and take this with a grain of salt, because these are relatively low liquidity markets. So like the lines move if somebody just max bets something, it's going to move, and that's ultimately not that much money. But top has taken a good amount of money. This opened RNG favored.
People love betting. Like people love top though. Like just people.
So here's the other thing. People love top, and somebody has been just smashing blue side. Like they've just been smashing side selection this week. Like across the board, the lines move that way. So like somebody's doing it because and it's not book adjustment because someone's hitting it, because like if you go through and look at like all the like the kill spreads and team totals and stuff, it's swapped favorites. In a lot of these like 50-50 matches, this is one of them. So, just like thought I'd mention it because it's a little funky and you see that every once in a while. But I want a piece of this match. Somebody, the winner is going to have one of these teams.
And look, you're over under, like you're getting, it's 24.5. That's just, it's too low. I mean, you're paying minus 120, like whatever, but. Okay, instead of playing minus 115, you're paying minus 120. I play minus 120 all the time on totals. And to get like 1 point up and be like to plus 105, I loved the over-unders on this one, not the unders. I'm just taking the overs and probably going to smash.
Both of these teams have gone over 23.5 in more than 64% of their games. Top have gone over 24.5, so 60+%. 25.5, 50 some odd +%. And then RNG are well over that too. So,
and it's not that they're just going over it, dude. They're fucking shooting and soaring past
So here's the other thing too, is like if you look at like their matches, so these two have been like the teams that have bucked the trend. Something I've noticed, and I wrote about this in my macro trends report this week, is in the LPL historically, the matches between fairly evenly matched teams, especially like the top of the table teams, have gone over. Like it's not like a sure thing blind, but it's long term, it's been a winner if you just like blind bet overs in like top 10 matchups basically, or like anywhere where it's like a less than 250 money line or less than 200 money line for the favorite. That has not been the case this year, primarily like overall, but these two teams have kind of been the exception. Like if you look at where's it at? Like if you look at look at just each of these teams against like the good teams. Like a lot of the times they're smashing the bad teams, and that's why like their averages and means are down. But like against the good teams or teams that they're competitive with, these are clown fiestas, right? Like look at top against Weibo. That series was bananas, right?
43, 23,
Yeah.
28, you know, like
FPX was like not, that was like the FPX get right spot, and that was a bonanza too. So like
28, 35, 28.
this feels somebody typed it in the chat. Who was it? Where was it? I don't know. Somebody said, "Oh yeah, Jordan Esports DFS said this feels like an LPL classic where it's just somebody's gonna win one of these just stupid 40-minute 50 kill games. There's a couple of them every season. You don't want to try to time them all, but like, well, I think this match has a good chance of one or two games just going completely nuts. And if it happens to be the same team in two of those games, that just nukes the slate, right? Like that's a class. That's what you want, and you have two even money teams here.
Yeah,
you have two even money teams with a dog that's going to be chalky. I think people look at this series and they're going to have a harder time picking who they like than they are in like Ultra Prime Anyone's Legend because of the pricing.
Yeah, so let's actually get into the pricing. I think smashing overs, picking a side. I mean,
I bet the overs in this, and I laid the juice on it too. So
I know you did. Like I sent you a message about smashing overs, and I was like, maybe I should just check and see if his article's out. And I was like, oh, it is. Oh no, he didn't smash him. Oh, but he did on one. And I was gonna say I hadn't seen you hit a lot of totals recently.
Yeah,
so that's that there's like some conviction if you hadn't seen it in a while. I'll tell you a funny story is I accidentally almost threw like 12 units on a over in the LFL. But like it's like the bet's under review and I'm like, why is it under review? This is stupid. And it comes back. It's like, sorry, the maximum that we can risk on this is like
saved by the limit, dude.
And I was like, what? And the bet lost.
Woo!
So yeah, it did, and it was a smash bet too. It was a smash bet like this. Like it was Vitality B over Team OP. Team OP is a Fiesta team, but they're bad. Vitality is like 18, 19, 20. They're like the highest kill team in wins in the LFL, and they snowballed and won 15-2. And it was like a 23.5 total or something like that. There was a huge edge on it. I would have been okay with the 10-unit bet had it gone through. I would have been sad the next day. So a couple notes. While we have been now in the top lane, super awesome. We don't have Can, obviously. He's not even in the player pool. So it doesn't matter.
I messaged Labs, by the way, at 1:30 this afternoon about that.
Well, he's not in DraftKings, so like
yeah, that's not. Yeah,
but we still don't have Breathe with RNG here. That's still the bin Breathe.
I sent that one too.
You have to send separate messages. They can only do one.
I did. I sent for each individual one. I said. I don't know.
Anyway. Let's take a look at a couple of these. From a catch, like I don't really think that this is a great catch slate. If you were playing cash,
disagree.
Okay. Well, what cash teams are you thinking?
Anyone's Legends. Anyone's Legends Sandbox. That's where I'm at.
Oh man. 538. What about Anyone's Legend Damwon? If you just want to.
Bro, you get a cash line with an 80 carry captain. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it doesn't.
You have to be as bullish as I am on both of those teams, and admittedly, I'm pretty bullish on both of those. So that's.
I just don't think that there's any like strong captain leans. Man, this is pitiful scoring.
Oh, that one, yeah.
I mean, I think you can pick a side. Like, you can pick your RNG with Sandbox.
At that point, you're like, I can see what you're saying though. Like, maybe there's a better like WT, like winner take all slate, like 5-mans or whatever, 4-mans. I think that's okay too. That's actually probably a better slate for that. But
yeah, because look, when I'm trying to bet, or when I'm thinking of head-to-heads, again, I don't even play them, but I know a lot of people that watch do, and people ask me about it. I'm just trying to get the highest odds, the biggest probability of getting two winners in there, and hoping that the other person tries to get cute, especially on a slate like this. So, I mean, I guess if you could do something like this is super low ceiling, terrible projection. Can you do closer?
You're getting a Prince captain, and they just play around Prince every single game. Just
you're getting the Prince captain. maybe you can't really go canyon. I mean, you can go. You can't go the 4-3 because of the. Yeah, I mean, like you could do something like this. Again, I don't have a strong lean on cash here, just because I think all these games are kind of toss ups. But just taking a look at how I had it projected, your projections are usually pretty close to mine. We differ in some things. But in like 2-1s, typically my 2-1 projection wise are going to be lower than. I'm not trying to project that one loss being a fiesta. I think it's falling in line with the other side. But I have Zoom as the highest scoring top laner, kind of is right there. But it's basically coming out of this up AL game, right? Like this is where it's coming.
I have Zoom. I actually have Kana second.
Well, I have him second in a 2-0.
Yeah, same. I have second in a 2-0. I have. Yeah. I have the two of them kind of a cut above everyone else. A few points ahead.
Yeah, I have Zed.
You have like a 4-person tier 1. I see. I'm looking at yours now here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do. I have Doo there, but like I don't think that they. Probably
actually, hold up. Let me see. I might actually be using. Oh, you know what? Hold up. Let me switch this over.
I mean, I guess just a couple points of note when you're building and constructing lineups on these guys. Obviously, playing the people that aren't obvious or haven't done well can be very good for you, and it's won a lot of people a lot of money. But one of the guys that I think people like to play that has really dropped off in his kill participation and his kill share is Wayward. Much to the chagrin of all of my season-long LPL teams, I have Wayward in everything.
Thanks, buddy. You helped me dodge a bullet on that one.
I think he still scores well. Yeah. And I'm still doing well in those, but he's not a priority within that stack for me. I think he's almost the first one out. And I think a lot of people want to put him in over Tian. And I get that. I totally do. And we'll actually get to the jungle here in a second. But yeah, I mean, Zoom, Kana, Zed, however you say it, man, it's so weird for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's not really a Z, right? But you say
yeah.
Zoom,
well,
right?
No, you got to remember too. The people broadcasting are saying they're Australian, so
yeah,
they're gonna say
all
Zed.
Right. We've got Dove, Naguri, the Shy. Like you could play any of those guys, it's fine, but like they're not priorities in stacks. I think this is where it kind of diverges a little bit for me. Like up AL is here, and they'll be in those. We talked about playing somebody with Dread if you wanted to play one of those, and Way scores super super well and wins. Yeah. And actually, I even looked it up in terms of junglers that.
Dude, he's outperforming like a lot of carries. Yeah.
So when we look at this split, when did this start? Like the 9th or something like that. Way and Way are two guys that have scored really well, and obviously only one Way today. No Way.
You're fired. That's enough. Get out.
This is very representative. Like these are the guys that score the most in the jungle. But Croco, Dread, SOFM, they're all live. I guess on some level Canyon is too. But I don't want any part of Hacker.
So Canyon, I looked at basically the Damn One guys. You got to look at as a floor situation. Yeah. If you're looking for that, for cash or anything like that, that's how you have to look at it. But
they don't score a lot. Analog doesn't give up a lot.
Yeah, on an upside projection, you're not looking at a lot. You're just looking at this is the most likely 2-0 on the slate. So, yes, Wade does take a lot of Yahoo's kills.
Nathan, I don't. You got to go back and watch the start of the stream. We had a really deep philosophical conversation. We didn't even know if you were real. We talked about it. We don't know if anything's real. That's the whole point.
You're all just
or if we're all just in Will's sim. Yeah, maybe it's in your sim. I don't know. Who knows?
Maybe.
But go back.
We gotta get Zhao Hao on a good team, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I like him too. From a point perspective, I mean, you can maybe even do an RNG, maybe I think you. I don't think you. Man, I mean, this is
Are you trying to build cash?
probably
Yeah.
no. This is just kind of GPP, but I think you can do. I mean, you can fit anything that you want here. Obviously, people are going to go with Gala and Betty. I think you can go with like a way captain with a Zhao Hao, and like you could do that. Like you can do that. That is something I would do.
I'm pretty sure you can do anything you want.
Yeah, you can. Like watch this. Watch this. This is what we do. We go like this. Okay, yeah, that's captain. I get it. So then we don't want breathe because breathe doesn't do anything. We get that. We go here, right? You could go either one, but let's just keep it moving. You could go Betty, sneaky.
Dude, you can do with like AL or Ultra Prime and RNG. You can do anything you want.
But look, like I think this in large tournaments is an interesting play because like people are going to play RNG and they're going to play anyone's legend and they're going to play them together. But because you can do anything, they're going to do mid captains. They're going to do
80 carry captains.
80 carry captains, and like we talked about earlier, just being aware of the situations where you can do a jungle captain, like just like you can captain Marcoon, and Marcoon's going to be the highest scoring guy in XL. 1 out of 3 games, like both of these guys,
while still having a lot of exposure, and it's not like you're throwing a Hail Mary. This isn't like a support captain. You're praying they play Senna. Like Wei is actually just involved in everything. So
yeah, huge kill participation, and you just hope maybe he gets like a Viego reset kind of game.
Yeah,
and that just propels it. I mean, there's a lot of situations. Like, look, if he ends up playing Poppy twice, okay, cool. Like, not that Poppy's a bad champion, but like, not going to get a ton of kills. Do something else with your Saturday at that point.
I like the way captain Ultra Prime topside Galaming RNG quite a bit. I think that's probably going to be a pretty. I mean, that's going to get duped, I'm sure. Maybe not a ton, but like,
well, so
that's a way. That's a way to get exposure to these without being, like it's a way to get exposure to this and be different without just having to jam like a bunch of the 80 carry captain lineups, right?
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Jordan, on that. But I also think you can just throw off the team. Like, look, you have enough money there. Everybody that's going to one-off a team slot there is going to go to Damwon. I think in a 15, if you're going to one-off a team slot, I would look at Weibo. I would look at BLG. I would look at Sandbox. I would look at any of those teams.
I would look at Nongshan. If they end up winning that, if they end up winning that, and it ends up being like, 2 or even 3, just like of those. If you get even just one of those like 45-minute Fiesta games, and they get 5 or 6 dragons or something, and they end up like winning. If that's like game 1, they end up winning 2-0 in a weird ass series like that. You're gonna have like no one's gonna have that. That's another way to get different with these. It's just like you could have all these iterations of if you really like that lineup, like this setup, it screams out, right? Like I think everyone is gonna have something to do with that. Whether it's like AL, it's those 4 teams. I think is gonna be a good chunk of the ownership tomorrow.
I think you could do it with Forge and do it just as a 3-4. Or like
you could do a 3-4
with the team.
What 3-3-1s aren't great, but you could do like.
Oh, my bad. Well, yeah, do a one-off with Zoom and throw a handle on there.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
No, let's see what actually we got here. Oh, you know what? No,
you could do. You can like quite literally do. I think anything. I don't think there's anything.
I know. I was just seeing what like the projections come out, and okay. So maybe you don't go with the Way captain. Maybe you go with the small stack RNG and you go 4 stack with the jungle captain with anyone's legend. That's kind of sneaky. I think you wouldn't play Betty. I just look what it comes down to for me though. Mid is pretty clear cut the same way. Obviously, I have Knight as the highest scoring guy in a win, and that makes a ton of sense. I have Forge up there too.
What was your top RNG anyone's legends lineup?
It's like a Betty captain. Remember, I don't also score teams in my projections.
Yeah, no, I know. I was just curious.
It's like a Betty with Way.
Mine's the same thing except I swapped Gala and Betty, and that was it. Otherwise, the same. Okay, so we're more or less.
Yeah, well, I have Gala.
My second was the same. So.
Well, this is my 2-0 projection. So, like when I look at my 2-0. In the ADC, like Gala is just miles above everybody.
Yeah,
Betty's up there, Wong Fong's up there, Elk is way down. I think people will play more Elk, and I mean, look, they haven't won a lot, so his numbers don't reflect that, and they just don't have enough wins to kind of normalize. But yeah, I mean, you can kind of see where this is, and then my supports. You know, I don't know.
Dude, I kind of like getting involved with like Doggo or like Fofo Captain, because I think they project real high in wins too. So like maybe the whole team doesn't necessarily, but like those two, maybe a small stack BLG if you want to get exposure to that game.
Yeah, so something like
I don't know, dude. My gut's telling me that game's gonna somehow just nuke the entire thing, and like no one's gonna be on it.
So like here's the problem. If you're playing a small stack BLG, you have to play Bing or you have to play Breathe, and like Breathe is just not 2001 Breathe. Like he's just not, and he hasn't been. He wasn't on BLG. He hasn't been on RNG. We're just waiting for that game, and I just waiting for that series. I think you can do this
series is that everyone's gonna own. Like you're not splitting it 5 ways. There's no jungler to own.
So, one off ZDZ, or maybe if you feel the other way, one off Zoom with RNG like BLG. I mean, you can get kind of crazy there.
Zoom Gangplank, dude.
Yeah.
Zoom Gangplank ends with like a 12, 4, and 20 score line or something.
What's your point? What's your point, Spell? Like he's got 7 kills. Yeah. So what? That's seven more kills than me. 7 more kills than you. Exactly. I mean, we're going to see some icon ownership for sure. Like 2-3%.
Oh, that too. Yeah. Dude, that's so. I wish this jungler was in the pool because then I actually think you'd have. I don't know. It's not actually that much different.
You're still going to have weight. You're going to have a 2% weight. Like, or maybe a little less because they're just.
I want one of the carries on that team.
Or way. Yeah, you're gonna have way. Not way. I'm sorry, but way. You're gonna have way ownership. You're gonna have icon ownership.
I'm gonna
Those
go.
Two guys are gonna be on.
I'm gonna go hand build a couple Fofo Captain lineups and see how they look.
So Fofo Captain.
When I spike this tomorrow.
I think if you're Fofo Captaining though, I think you're doing it with top, right? Like that's the thing. You also have to think about how they're doing it. Like I know actually people will still do it with RNG. That's like not a problem. It's just Jalu's just not been as great from a fantasy perspective recently, and maybe that's a whole reason to play him. Maybe that's what we need to do is play him.
Let me see what I can get here.
But those are my calls. I mean, we're going almost 2 hours here. I still have to build some lineups. We've got some bets. I like the overs in almost every one of these LPL games. I'm taking Sandbox on the money line. You convinced me not to get cute. From
we're on the same side on a lot of stuff. What could possibly go wrong tonight? It's either going to be a miserable show tomorrow night, or it's going to be joyous in the Discord.
But yeah, I think Up and BLG are the two teams that present some really interesting leverage that are more obvious spots. Up because they're so expensive and really on a downswing. And because people are going to want to play Anyone's Legend, just people like it. I for the life of me, don't understand it. But then we've got BLG. Like they're just not the team that everybody fell in love with. Like trying to find that one game. Everybody's gotten even on them, but then they just keep running it and like losing the money. It's like IG. They're one of those teams. BLG and Weibo are two teams that people don't like to play. I think the perception of BLG is that they're slower than they maybe actually are because they have enough of those games that bring their average down, and you remember those. And BLG is just historically a 2-1 team. If anything, them having blue side pick to this is like just a 100% BLG 2-1 win. In fact, I'm probably going to bet
it's like a what's it called? Yeah, just go fire up the Exacta there.
BLG never 2-0s, right? Like they never 2-0. They always 2-1. And if they're on blue side, they're gonna win that. And like,
dude, all you need in that situation is for like Doggo to like have a mediocre game too, where they lose, where he doesn't get steamrolled. Like maybe one of the other lanes gets steamrolled, and he ends up like 3-1-3 or something like that, and then the next game gets like 7 or 8 kills, and then he ends up like it's a 2-1, but he scores like 140 or something stupid.
Yeah, I
Like
mean, no
that
matter
is like a very, very reasonable outcome.
look, no matter what happens, Prime will have enough ammo on some of these teams that he's going to make some remarks about some teams. It doesn't matter. He's got it. He's going to talk about Top, or he's going to talk about RNG. He's going to talk about Weibo, or he's going to talk about Doggo. He's going to talk about Zoom, or he's going to talk about anyone's legend. Like he's got so much ammunition. I hope his tweets are ready to go tomorrow. I hope his fingers are just ready to run at it. Whatever reality you want. I think Up and BLG are the two most interesting spots. Again, Up because of price, BLG because of perception.
Who's your third?
Damn one.
Yeah,
I think that they're look. I think Sandbox Nongshim is what it is, and like it is what we expect it to be. And I think everybody's perception of it is that. I think that you're going to get pretty. Maybe you'll get a little bit depressed ownership on it, but it's not like it has this massive ceiling that it being overlooked is just like a massive error on people's. I like it. Yeah,
like
look,
Weibo?
you can play Weibo.
I think Weibo's my number 3.
I think just damn one because it's a 5-game slate. They're expensive. Like how are these prices?
They are usually just
literally, yeah. They're actually
14 to 2.
Yeah. Like they're the most expensive in some positions with Up. Like you got to get really cute,
dude. You're right.
You got to get cute. Again, not in small fields, but in some big fields. I think kind of what I'm going to do is I might be like in some of the smaller field stuff, like RNG, BLG, or RNG Up or something like that. But then go like all of the $10 go like top esports, and then the $5 where you have 35 entries.
Yeah.
Maybe I do like all damn one. You know, it's like $150 like entry basically.
I will
at that
say,
point,
I'll say this: like they keep screwing up the top end contest, but like some of these like middle contests, like the $5, 35, like that's a good middle ground to have. Like we didn't have that for a while. It's great.
The $10, 352 people, 10 entries.
That's great.
$1,000 to first. It's like a very winnable tournament. You don't need to have some wild combination, and you're not investing a ton.
Yeah,
it's $100. So yeah, those were the type of tournaments that I really built my bankroll. And despite having a unit shaming moment earlier, look, you put yourself out there as an expert. You make these comments. You call people biased and your projection better, or whatever the case is. You're going to get unit shamed. Okay. Like you don't do those things and play super low stakes. Oh, you don't have disposable income? I thought you were super good at this. Like that's what you're putting out there. Look, if you're just doing it for fun and you're not talking shit and you're not posting stuff, that's one thing. Look, come at me. Come at me. Anybody can. I do this show like my guy, I know you're probably not watching, but maybe you are, and you know who you are. Do a show, bro. Go for it.
I encourage people to do that. I've been saying to people recently, and this in a more optimistic and positive.
No, not you, Jordan. Not you, Jordan. Go to my Twitter. You'll see.
I've been telling people, you know what? Like, just put yourself out there. Just do things. Just do the thing. Do that project you're looking to do. Make that show. Record that podcast. Write that article. Like, start that hobby. Whatever it happens to be. Because you'll what's the worst that could happen, right? You spend some time learning something. And it's like, okay, well, I learned I don't want to do that, or I'm not good enough at that. And either that's the end of it, or maybe it's you get motivation that you want to get better at it, and that's a new hobby that you have, right? But I don't know. I could go off on this because I've been doing content creation now for the better part of the last decade in different ways and forms, and there's always going to be people from the nosebleeds screaming and giving you shit and whatever it happens to be. But you know what? Like, I say the same thing. I said, by all means, you can do it too.
There's two things too. Like, look, when you have the picks in your mind and they play out right, you're like, oh shit, like I should have said something.
Yep.
But like when you actually have to put them out there and you have to have like some type of analysis behind it, it is completely different.
Yeah.
It is 100% different. So it is what it is.
Game respects game. You put either your money or your reputation or both on the line, and it makes you have to be better, and people respect it more. Like that was the whole premise of when I started doing betting content. That was the whole premise of it. Like At first, it was to hold myself accountable, to have other people like kind of check and to learn things. What it eventually turned into was like, there's so much bullshit, and you know this. Everyone watching this probably knows this. There's a lot of bullshit in this industry. Like there's a lot of cool people that are really smart, doing awesome things. There was a whole lot of bullshit and snake oil salesmen here too. And at the very least, you need to be able to let people know like who they're dealing with. If everything is there and out in the open, then you got nothing to hide, nothing to be ashamed of, and it is what it is, right? And yeah, it makes you have some pride in your work, you know, that kind of thing. Everything about it is better when it's above the table. Like, and you know what? For a while, I used to get bothered by that kind of shit. I mean, it still once in a while bugs you, but you know what the ultimate thing is? You just say, all right, like, where's your public P&L, dude? That's it.
Look,
like by all means, if you can beat me, show me. That's fine. I'm cool. I will bow to you if you can. Good for you. But
look, I don't care that anybody says anything. It was just like I was like, man, if like somebody else had to send me this it was a tweet from a couple of days ago. It's like, bro, you're gonna screenshot my Twitter and you're gonna talk shit
and not even tag you.
You can't tag me like
that. Yeah, that.
And then you have the nerve to be like, why are you bringing it to the Discord, man? Why can't you just bring it to DMs? Bro, why are you putting it on like
you know, I'm not tagging.
Like, you tag me without tagging me. Like, what the fuck is this? Like, I don't know, man. Like, hey, look. It's a piece of shit. That's
it is not. No, spell it is not. No. it's not a necro post, man. It's very live. Very real.
All right. Well, that's the gist of it. Hey, we got to wake up in a couple hours to get to this first game. I got to build some lineups. So thank you for joining me as always. This would have been a 30-minute podcast probably otherwise, but we went for 2 hours. We had more to say.
Man. It's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
And hey, it's always an experience if it's a Friday night and you know it's 11 o'clock and I haven't had anything to drink. So
everyone else is out partying. We're in here grinding lineups, man. That's the grind set, right?
We've got Spell and Jordan and Nathan, and you know somebody's going to hit it today.
Shout out to the real one.
This is the day that the tadpole becomes a frog and then evolves into a shark. Maybe I've been a tadpole this summer split. Shark time though. Let's go.
Let's go.